Hi, David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. Here we are grouting the retaining wall. We have the pump here because we just poured the hillside staircase, which is in part 2, because this is a 4-part series, and this is actually part 4. What we're going to be showing here is the filling of the block. We're going to also show how to stucco block and match existing stucco, because what we've done here is we've raised an existing retaining wall, one course. And the way how we did that is we doweled 1/2-inch rebar, vertical bar 6 inches deep into the existing every 36 inches. And we epoxied them in. We cleaned all the holes out with compressed air and brushed. Then we put the XP, Simpson's XP epoxy in there, 2-part epoxy, and dropped the dowels. Now here's the stucco process here. Now the top of this has a little bit of a roll to it, so you don't have a lot of standing water on it. So we're just going to kind of crown it over the top. And the way I did the actual grouting itself is I domed it a little bit. That way, when I came back with the mortar, I wouldn't have to get a real thick bed of mortar, because it'll crack if you get real thick on here. So I kept it all really consistent, the thickness. Now, this is the block sitting on the existing wall. And this is going to be our first coat with mortar, and then we're going to let that cure out for a couple days. And then we're going to hit it with the stucco mix. I used some La Habra 1620 and about the right coarseness to match the existing block. And then once it gets all painted, you'll never see it. This is a Type S mortar mix. Now once it sets up a little bit, I use the green sponge float just to rough it up, because I want it good and rough so my next coat will stick well to it. Also, if you notice, I'm wetting the wall down before I apply any mortar to it. If you don't wet it, it's not gonna adhere very well to it, and it's gonna dry really quickly. So you have to wet it first. I just trowel it on and shape it up with the trowel, and then I smooth it out with the sponge float. Now, since this lower block was added after we had pumped out the rest of the staircase and filled the other course, because this block was an add-on down here, we ended up having to mix this one by hand, which worked out okay. Just using a trenching shovel to mix this up. You can use a hoe, or you can use a paddle mixer. Typical concrete mixer doesn't work well because it sticks to it. So this is my son, Tyler. He's giving it a go on this one, and I'm down yonder on that, working on the other wall. That top wall there already has the first coat on. Now we're going to finish up this lower wall, then we can do the stucco all at once. So I just set a couple blocks on either end. That way I have something to tie my line to. And pull it on through. Okay, the wrought iron's going back in place. Once we get all the sections back in here, we can get it all straight. And then I'm going to use a non-shrink grout to fill in around those posts that I extended. And that's crucial that you use a non-shrink grout. Otherwise, if you use anything else, you're going to get a little wiggle in the fence. Before I fill in with the non-shrink grout, I'll weld up these gate posts. Weld everything together. Make sure the whole thing is straight, and then I'll go ahead and put the non-shrink grout in. We're just going to rub some waterproofing on the back of this wall. Here's the non-shrink grout right here that we used, precision grout. And that's what we use to hold that railing in place. Here's the final stucco coat that we'll be using. It's just a white. It's going to all get painted. But this will give me the same texture that's on the existing wall, so I have a nice match. And we just hand mix this with the trenching shovel. Now I'm using the red sponge on this one. I used the green on the first coating, getting more coarse, rougher texture. Now I'm going with the red sponge because I want it a little bit smoother. So at this point, once the paint goes on, you won't see that any block was added to this. Also, before applying the stucco, I wet the wall down. If you don't wet the wall, it won't bond as well, and it'll flash dry on you. Got the fence up. We've got the non-shrink grout in. Well, I just wet the wall up, and now we're ready to put the stucco on. That staircase you can see in part 2 getting poured out. In part 1 you can see the forms being built. Part 3 is the actual retaining wall going up. And this is part 4, the stucco. So this is all ready for paint now. Once the paint goes on here, it will look like one wall done at one time. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. This gives you a little tutorial on how to stucco. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like these kind of videos, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you get notified when I release another video. Have a good day.